Exposed. The sinister prisoner with cursed secrets that haunted my life for 5 spine-chilling years. Jenna never believed her quiet suburban world could unravel. But when the killer who haunted her town re-emerged, she learned otherwise. His name whispered like a death knell, igniting fear in the hearts of Maplewood. A murderer walked freely again right next door. The ominous shadows seemed bolder, the air heavier. Every hollow laugh from the neighborhood children echoed with warning. Terror now lurked in every corner, twisting everything she thought she knew. As Jenna parked her car one late evening, weariness drew heavy on her eyelids, but her heart raced. A figure loomed at the edge of her manicured lawn. It was a silhouette outlined against the moonlight. Was it a trick of the light? She shook it off as sleepless paranoia. Tossing back caffeine, she tucked her exhausted kids into bed. Yet sleep slipped away as chilling whispers gurgled up from the dark, repeating the name insidiously. Wraith. Night after night, fear twisted into her bones, and Jenna's heart pounded harder. Her kids were enthralled by tales of the Wraith, daredevils who haunted men like her new neighbor. Men paid to hide behind their reputations. The weeks dragged. Halloween approached, caking the town in a thick atmosphere of dread. Jake was in the grip of a fervent obsession with legends, so innocent, yet so drawn to something unnatural. His whispers grew into conversations with an invisible friend in the dark. Jenna trembled. His small hands clutched a faded photo of Uncle Charlie, long lost and shrouded in secrets. Why did he see him now? It all linked back to the sinister path of that released prisoner, fueling something long dormant inside her. Late at night, when she should have been dreaming, she tiptoed to the window, dread weaving through her every fiber, a cold sweat breaking out on her brow. Laughter danced through the musty air outside. She opened the door only to find a bone-chilling silence. Desperate for clarity, Jenna flipped through town archives, plastering herself against the homey realities of Maplewood's past. The glow of the screens illuminated darkened realities. The truth lurked under the surface, just as terrifying as the horrors of true crime. Then, dread cascading, she found that the prisoner was tied to her family. Each discovered link frayed the threads of her perceived safety. Maplewood, once a cradle, exposed a sinister underbelly. The haunting legends of those who once loved the released man morphed into shared terror as early whispers of disappearances haunted every corner of her delusion of comfort. She could see it now, the faces of past victims swinging like ghosts in the hallways of her own home. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she clutched the photograph, piecing together her haunted lineage, a soft tap sent chills through Jenna's spine. Could it be? The perpetrator watching, waiting? Shadows flitted beyond her living room window, casting doubt on the night's stillness. Panic rippled through her, heart racing, fingers trembling. And then, she heard it breathy whispers of old curses, tangled with rustling leaves, gliding towards her ears. As her phone rang, she flinched. A number she didn't recognize lit up the screen. When she reluctantly answered, a voice, chillingly familiar, haunted her. You shouldn't have looked too closely, Jenna. Was the Wraith real? Or had the town's sins come home to roost? The question hung low, heavy, shrouded in darkness as she braced for what would unfold next. Jenna's heart thudded furiously as the voice faded. She held the phone like a poisonous viper, ready to strike. Who is this? She managed to croak, her voice barely piercing the suffocating quiet of the night. Silence answered her, but the tension in the air thickened, twisting and coiling around her like a serpent. With trembling hands, she ended the call and set the phone down, the screen blank like the ominous void outside her window. The shadows were no longer just shadows. Each flicker brought memories of the past alive, resurfacing like dreadful apparitions. Was it really him? She whispered, thinking maybe the nightmares had manifested into her waking world. Jenna rushed to the window once more, peering into the dark abyss of her yard, heart hammering a frenzied rhythm in her chest. All she could hear was the wind whistling through the branches, like lost souls calling out for help, compelling her to return inside. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the direction of her garage, sending a jolt through Jenna's veins. Years of terror had seeped into her very bones, and instinctually, she grabbed a heavy flashlight and opened the door, pulse quickening with each step. The old wood creaked beneath her feet, echoing loudly in the thick silence. As she approached the garage, another sound, a soft, childlike giggle drifted through the darkness. "Jake?" she called out, her voice wavering as she squeezed the flashlight, wishing it could evaporate the encroaching dread. The giggle hummed back with a sinister lilt, one that should not belong to her son. "Mommy, come play." The voice floated closer, closer until it was too close. Her instincts screamed at her. Jenna hurled the flashlight ahead, the beam slicing through the darkness to reveal a figure at the edge of her yard. Her breath hitched. The outline was unmistakable, a small boy with tousled hair, just standing against the backdrop of a thickening fog. "Jake!" she cried, sprinting towards him, desperate for reassurance. But as she reached him, the boy turned, a familiar glimmer in his eyes that twisted her stomach, unnatural and wrong. It was him, but not him, horribly distorted. "Who are you?" Jenna's voice was sharp, punctuated by fear. The creature smiled, a smile that invoked nightmares, one that belonged to a lost child, but wore Jake's face like a mask. He tilted his head, as if curious about her reaction. "I'm your friend. We can play forever." Screaming, Jenna stumbled back, heart racing in terror. The boy faded into the darkness, laughter trailing behind him, echoing hauntingly through the air. She darted back inside, slamming the door shut and locking it. Whatever had emerged from the shadows was taking the shape of everything she held dear, mocking the bonds of family. In that moment, her phone rang again. Gut clenching, panic threatening to engulf her, she gripped it tightly. With each ring, flashes of the past spun wildly in her mind, James's face, the old legends, and the wraith. "What do you want?" She spat into the phone as she answered, desperation leaking into her voice. "That was just a taste," said the voice, a cold laugh echoing back. "Your son is coming. You'll believe me soon enough." The line went dead, leaving her alone in a house that felt more like a tomb. The walls seemed to close around her, thick with the weight of terror. Her heart hammered in her chest. What had she invoked? Desperation clawed at her as she turned to her son's room. But when she opened the door, the bed was empty. "Jake!" Silence. What darkness had seeped into her home? What malevolence now twisted her world beyond recognition? And then she spotted a trail of small, dusty footprints leading out into the hallway. Fear gripped her throat as she followed the trail, the shadows whispering secrets of old curses behind her. Where would it lead her? What awaited in the night? "Come play." The voice echoed softly, as if taunting her from the depths of despair. With every beat of her heart, realization dawned. The wraith had started to weave its web, and Jenna was only the first thread. The trail of footprints stretched across the threshold of the door, small and dusty, leading into the dark hallway with its peeling wallpaper and flickering bulbs. Each step felt like an invitation to an unseen realm, beckoning her into the depths of despair. Jenna's breath quickened as the echo of that malicious laughter played back in her mind. It wrapped around her like an icy hand, tightening with each heartbeat. She hesitated, her fear wrestling with the urge to find Jake. What if he was trapped somewhere? What if that thing was luring her deeper into its nightmare? The corridor was dark, throbbing with an otherworldly energy, and she gripped the wall, feeling its rough surface beneath her fingers. A chill swept past her, whispering secrets of old curses, and she forced herself to take a step forward, then another. "Jake!" she called again, her voice trembling. The silence swallowed her words whole, and the house seemed to tremble in response. With every step, the air grew heavier, thick with a sense of foreboding. Jenna reached the end of the hall, where a door stood slightly ajar, shadows dancing within. The footprints led straight to it. Her heart raced. She pushed the door open further, the creaking sound echoing unnaturally loud in the oppressive quiet. Inside, it was darker than she expected, the windows shrouded with grime. Dust motes floated in the beam of her flashlight, particles dancing like trapped spirits. And there, in the corner, was something she didn't expect. A small dollhouse that was intricately designed, the kind that one would imagine in a child's dream, but the detail was grotesque. Each room seemed to be a haunting portrayal of Jenna's own home. She stepped closer, mesmerized and horrified. Laughter rippled through the air again, this time deeper, more rooted in malice. "Come play with us, Mommy." The laughter transformed into whispering voices, echoing in a chorus of lost innocence, twisted and cruel. Jenna clutched her head, uncertainty clawing at her. They knew her pain and her memories. "No," she screamed, shaking her head violently. But the whispers grew louder, feeding on her terror. "You can't escape. He's waiting for you." The flashlight flickered, causing shadows to twist around her like monstrous serpents. Jenna stumbled back, the sinister faces of children appearing from the darkness, eyes glimmering with malevolence. They reached out, fingers stretching, desperate to pull her in. With a surge of adrenaline, Jenna bolted out of the room, careening back to the hallway. She felt their breath at her back, the cool rush of coming terror. Through the front door, the night awaited, a vast unknown filled with threats unseen. But as she raced down the hall, the air shifted. Something changed, and dread settled in her stomach like a stone. The shimmer of the moonlight through the windows caught her eye, illuminating the floor beneath her. There it was, the lingering trail of Jake's tiny footprints leading further away from the house into the woods. "Jake!" she shrieked, lungs burning. She bolted out the door and into the night, darkness swallowing her whole. With every stride, the forest loomed, threatening to engulf her. Branches snapped like bones underfoot, the atmosphere thick with humidity and foreboding. Jenna felt eyes watching her, waiting for her to falter. Light from her flashlight danced wildly, illuminating nothing but shadowy figures that seemed to warp and twist further away. "Come play?" The whispers taunted again, resonating through the trees. Fear tightened around her like a noose as she pushed forward. What was waiting for her in the heart of the woods? Who had truly taken Jake? The moon hung high, casting an ominous glow as Jenna plunged deeper, desperation guiding her steps. And just as she thought she had lost all hope, she heard a soft voice calling out, barely breaking through the grasping darkness. "Mommy, help Jake." But the woods were hungry. They surged around her, whispering ancient curses, ready to seal her fate. Would she reach him before it was too late? Would the wraith claim another soul? A chilling silence fell, and Jenna hesitated, feeling that familiar cold gripping her. The shadows thickened, and she realized she was not alone. There was something lurking, watching, waiting for the moment she would turn back, and in that moment, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that the wraith's game had only just begun. Jenna's heart pounded loudly in her chest, each beat resonating like a war drum, echoing in the hollow of the forest. The soft call of her son drew her onward, the lure of his voice full of innocence and desperation. Branches scratched against her skin, jagged like claws, but she pushed through the pain. "Jake!" she shouted again, her voice raw and cracking, swallowed by the oppressive darkness. The forest seemed to respond with a low, murmuring chuckle, as if the trees themselves were sharing in the joke, mocking her futile attempts to fight through. She felt an icy tendril of fear coil around her throat. The laughter drifted again. It was familiar, that ghastly sound. It was as if it had tangled itself into the very essence of the woods, claiming dominion over the night. Suddenly, the ground beneath Jenna shifted, roots twisted and tangled her feet, grabbing at her like skeletal hands. She stumbled, nearly losing her balance, and the flashlight flickered ominously. Just for a moment, darkness engulfed her senses. A knot twisted in her stomach. What if Jake really was gone? What if this was all a cruel trick designed to lure her into the wraith's clutches? Jenna fought the despair clawing at her heart. "No, I will find you, Jake," she cried out, her voice a mix of rage and determination. With a fierce resolve, she broke free from the grasping roots and continued onward, sweeping her light around frantically. The beam caught sight of something in the distance, a flash of movement. A figure darted between the trees, too quick for her eyes to focus and yet all too real. "Jake, is that you?" she yelled, already running toward it as hope burst inside her like flames igniting dry kindling. But as she approached, panic took hold once more, left for silent screams in the shadows. The figure melted into darkness, leaving nothing but the chill of a presence lost to her desperate reach. Without warning, the temperature dropped, and breath hung in the air like thick smoke. The whispers became louder, more insistent, swirling around her like malevolent spirits. "Come play, come join us," the laughter echoed, taunting her reality. She could feel the eyes on her again, sharp and unyielding. "Shut up. Just leave me alone," Jenna screamed, stumbling back, feeling her chest tighten. And then, she spotted something among the trees, a faint, flickering light, pulsating like a heartbeat. "Jake!" Jenna cried, racing toward it, her legs moving faster than she thought possible. Each step, each moment, became an urgent plea that she could not let go. Was it truly him? Or another deception in this labyrinth of nightmares? As she neared the light, it dimmed, and suddenly she felt a searing pain in her side, as if a blade had sliced through the carefully constructed veil of hope. Jenna gasped, pressing a hand to her waist, feeling the warmth of blood seep through her fingers. Terrified, she turned to see what had struck her. Shadows coalesced, forming a grotesque figure of twisted limbs and sharp teeth, grinning at her with glee. The wraith had come to collect its due. "Jake!" she screamed one last time, voice cracking under the weight of despair. The light began to fade, and the figure dissolved into the darkness, leaving her breathless and weak. The forest closed in around her, the oppressive weight of the trees bearing down mercilessly. But there it was again, a sound amid the darkness, almost like a soft cry, faint but unmistakable. It echoed as if it came from the earth itself, a call that twisted Jenna's heart with alarm. "Jake!" Suddenly, the ground shuddered, and a low growl reverberated through the trees. The air shimmered ominously as the wraith's form flickered in and out of view. Her breath quickening, Jenna understood she was not just racing against time. She was caught in a game far darker than she could have ever imagined. As the shadows converged, closing in around her, one thought pierced through her fear. Would she discover the terrible truth about her son, or would they both be consumed? The question clawed at her as the light faded, leaving only the night. Jenna stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror, feeling the wraith's breath on her skin, a wicked chill that bit into her very core. The shadows twisted around her, distorting the world into a nightmare of elongated limbs and malevolent eyes. She fought to regain her footing, the pain in her side a cruel reminder of her vulnerability. The soft cry echoed around her again, a haunting melody that seemed to slip through her fingers like fine sand. "Jake!" she screamed again, her voice desperate and wild. The growl filled the air, vibrating in her bones, shaking her resolve. It was closer now, whatever it was, drawing nearer, hungry for fear. The trees whispered, their voices a symphony of mockery. "Come play, come join us," they were mocking her, twisting her mind. Jenna pressed her hands to her ears, trying to block the sound, trying to hold on to the last threads of sanity. But she couldn't ignore the cries, faint as they were, laced with pain. Her son. She stumbled forward, pushing past the looming shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. "Hold on, sweetie. I'm coming," she shouted, praying he could hear her. As the flashlight flickered again, illuminating fleeting glimpses of the twisted forest branches that arched like claws, bushes that rustled like whispers. The shadows swarmed around her, creating an inescapable prison. Jenna felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Was it her imagination, or were the roots moving intentionally, guiding her deeper into the grasp of the wraith? The whispers grew closer, brushing against her skin, slipping into her thoughts. "You can't save him, he's ours now." They felt almost like a caress, a seductive promise she couldn't trust. "No," Jenna shouted, fury igniting inside her. "I want to let you take him." She surged forward, the pain in her side intensifying with each step, but her will pushed her on. The choke of fear was still there, but amid it, the pulse of a mother's love burned bright, illuminating her path through the murky shadows. She could not falter. Not now. Suddenly, she broke through a thicket and found herself in a small clearing. In the center, a flickering light hovered, almost strangely beautiful in the chaos surrounding it. It pulsed with warmth, radiating a sense of safety. "Jake!" she called, rushing toward the light, her heart racing, a beacon in the darkness. But as she neared, her heart sank. The warmth dissipated, revealing a twisted reflection in the glassy surface of the light. It wasn't Jake that lay before her. Instead, it was a grotesque amalgamation, a vision of every child's nightmare wrapped into one. A creature crafted of sorrow, fear, and twisted betrayal. Jenna's breath caught. It reached out, its distorted face all too familiar, her child's features distorted into something monstrous. "Mommy," it whispered, a voice that both echoed Jake's and twisted it. With horror flooding her, she stepped back. The wraith's laughter erupted around her, shrill and echoing through the clearing. "Join us, join us." The shadows lurched forward, as if eager to claim her essence. Jenna felt the ground beneath her shift violently again as the air filled with a cacophony of screams, wails of despair, cries for freedom, each sound a reminder of the lives claimed by the dark woods. She fumbled for the flashlight, its beam now weak, pulsing as if it too were fighting against the darkness. She needed to escape, but the ground split open beneath her. A lustrous light, eager and alluring, seemed to beckon from the fissure. "Jake!" She cried out again, one last desperate attempt, the plea buoyed by her fading hope. As the shadows swarmed and the wraith's laughter rang in her ears, a final terrible question pierced her heart. Was Jake really there, or was he already lost to her forever? Jenna felt herself being yanked into the darkness, the world spinning around her. And then, silence enveloped her, like a heavy blanket, as she plummeted. What would she find at the bottom of this despair? A truth skewed by grief, or a darker destiny yet to be revealed? Jenna landed hard, the breath driven from her lungs as she hit the ground. It felt cold and damp, not at all like the warmth she had felt a moment ago. The darkness wrapped around her, thick like fog, pressing in as if alive. She pulled herself up, hands sinking into the squishy earth, and searched for a way to gather her thoughts. "Jake?" she whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the suffocating silence. Nothing answered. The only sound was her own ragged breathing, loud in her ears. She didn't feel safe anymore, not here. The oppressive darkness clawed at her spirit, demanding submission. As Jenna struggled to stand, a dull thud echoed nearby. Was it a heartbeat? Or simply an echo of her own fear? She should have been terrified, but a strange numbness settled in. The cries, the laughter, the wraith, they all felt like a distant thunder, rolling in the background of her mind. "Mommy," a voice drifted across the void, hauntingly familiar. Her heart jolted. "Jake!" She stumbled toward the sound, desperation clawing at her throat. The voice wound through the shadows, weaving a melody that pulled her deeper into the abyss. Every step felt like wading through thick molasses, the weight of the world pressing down. The whispers returned, echoing her son's name before warping it into something grotesque. "Jake, mommy, come join us." She clawed at her memory, at the light that had almost guided her to safety. "No," she shouted, shaking her head to dispel the illusions. Then, unlike before, the shadows parted, revealing a thin path illuminated by a flickering light ahead. It was weak, a mere glimmer in the grip of the darkness, but it ignited a flicker of hope in her heart. Jenna moved toward it, her pulse echoing in her ears. With every step, she felt the darkness cling harder, like a leech sucking her strength. And as she reached the light, the panic surged anew. This was not merely an escape, it was a test. What waited in the light? What truths had the wraith woven into its fabric? The light brightened, revealing a room, a small, cramped space surrounded by towering stone walls slick with moisture. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, casting erratic shadows. She shivered, realizing she wasn't alone. In the corner, a figure cowered, shadows curling around it like a protective shroud. "Help me, please," the figure trembled, its voice quaking with fear. "What are you?" Jenna replied, her fear mingling with confusion. "Are you real?" the figure asked, a face turning slowly toward her. A face she recognized. Jake. But this wasn't the vibrant boy she remembered. His eyes were hollow, dark rings framing their depths. "Jake! Oh, thank God. Mommy!" He reached out, but the shadows twisted, repelling him back. "You can't stay here. They'll take you too. They'll take you both." "What do you mean?" Jenna's heart raced as she stepped closer, but terror clenched around her chest. The whispers returned, louder now, a cacophony of voices rising into a shrill harmony. "They're coming. They'll take us both." With a sudden crash, The door at the far end of the room slammed open. A gust of wind swept through, sending papers flying. A tall, skeletal figure appeared, silhouetted against the light. Its face was shrouded in darkness, but Jenna felt its malevolent gaze piercing through. "Join us," it hissed, the air thick with malevolence. "No," Jenna cried, grabbing Jake's hand. "We're leaving." But the shadows thorned around them, fierce and unyielding. A sickening laugh erupted from the figure, filling the space with dread. "You think you can escape?" Jenna pulled Jake closer, determination surging through her. "I want to lose you." Yet the shadows writhed, hungry closed spaces tightening around them. As they pressed in, curses slithered through the air, promising eternal despair. "Jake, hold on." But just as Jenna felt the light of hope flicker out, a different voice cut through the noise. "Mother, save me before it's too late." Jenna hesitated, disbelief crashing over her. "What?" The wraith's laughter crescendoed, drowning in a flood of terror. Time seemed to stretch as the darkness closed in. Would she be able to break free and save her son? Or would the wraith claim them both in the clutches of eternal night? With an eruption of courage, Jenna braced for the unimaginable, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. Jenna's heart thundered in her chest as shadows twisted, closing in around her. The skeletal figure's laughter echoed in her mind, a cruel taunt that sent icy fingers creeping down her spine. "Run, Mommy. Please." Jake's voice quaked, desperate and raw. But where to run? Every direction seemed swallowed by the encroaching darkness. Every shadow lurked with malicious intent, ready to snare them in its grasp. The air thickened with dread, pressing heavily against her lungs, stifling her breath. "Hold on to me," Jenna shouted, her voice breaking through the suffocating silence. The light, the feeble bulb above, dipped ominously, flickering as if caught in a struggle against the overwhelming dark. She clasped Jake's hand tightly, feeling the chill emanate from him seep into her skin. "Mommy, they want you." Jake whimpered, his voice barely above a whisper. "You have to go? You can't save me." "No." Jenna's resolve deepened, fueling her fire against the darkness. "I will never abandon you." Next to her, the skeletal figure shifted, dark movements gliding through the air with practiced ease. It pointed, a claw-like finger extended toward them, the air crackling with an unnatural energy. "Foolish woman, you cannot fight fate. They will take what belongs to them." Jake's eyes widened in horror, but there was no time for words. All Jenna could think was escape. She turned, clutching him fiercely, ready to bolt toward the only path, the door wide open, beckoning with a false promise of safety. "Run!" she screamed, her feet pounding in unison with the chaos. Heart racing like a wild animal, they dashed through the threshold. The world outside felt alien, cold and bitter against her skin. A sharp wind sliced through the darkness, howling like a lost soul. Turning back for a split second, she saw the figure recede, swallowed by the shadows. Yet she could still feel its presence lurking right outside the edge of her vision. "Mommy?" Jake's small voice broke through her focus. "Yes, baby. I'm right here," she replied breathlessly, clenching his hand until she feared she might crush his tiny bones. "Where do we go?" His eyes were wide, glistening with tears. The air around them felt wrong, foreign. Each step they took echoed eerily, resonating through the night, no sound of life, only the rasping winds and their own panting breaths. "Just keep running," Jenna urged, her own fear threatening to drown her. She could feel the shadows gathering again, pushed away only by their frantic pace. What lay ahead? Uncertainty clawed at her mind, whispering that danger lurked just beyond her sight. The darkness wasn't done with them, it never would be. A low growl rippled through the air, an ominous warning that sent a fresh wave of panic coursing through her veins. As they reached a clearing, the moonlight scattered across the ground, illuminating a tangle of dead trees. Jenna stumbled to a halt, scanning their surroundings. Breathless, she turned to Jake. "We need to hide." "Mommy," he began, but she saw the flicker of something in the distance. A shadow, too tall and too wide. "Quick," she urged, dragging him behind a thicket of branches. They crouched low, hearts pounding in tandem. A rustle nearby sent spikes of terror ripping through her, and she instinctively shielded Jake, as if her mere presence could protect him from whatever horror lurked just on the other side. Suddenly, She felt the ground tremble beneath them, a shudder that ran from the earth into her bones. The distant figure emerged from the shadows, dragging something heavy behind it, its movements jerky and unnatural. "Join us," it croaked, voice stretching like a nightmare in the night. No, Jenna held Jake tighter, her breath hitching as their eyes locked, hers wide with terror, his filled with dread. They might not make it. Each second felt like an eternity as the figure advanced, the anticipation of horror creeping closer. Would she summon the strength to fight? Or would they, at last, succumb to the darkness woven around them? As Jenna held her breath and pressed her back against the cold, hard ground, the darkness settled heavily around them like a funeral shroud. The sound of dragging grew louder, a rhythmic scrape against the brittle underbrush that sent a jolt of panic through Jenna. She struggled to control her breathing, forcing herself to tune out the horrifying whisper that echoed in her mind, the taunting call from that skeletal figure. What did it mean by "join us"? What lay beyond the tangled branches? Jenna dared a peek. The figure was closer now, its elongated shadow carving out a path through the moonlit clearing. What was it dragging? An unquenchable curiosity, twisted with dread, surged through her. She couldn't let fear claim her. She had to protect Jake. "Stay still," Jenna whispered, less for him and more for herself, gripping her son's small hand tighter. Jake's wide eyes flicked back toward her, fear etched on his face. "Mommy, it's gonna get us." The figure drew even nearer, revealing what it pulled, a long shroud, glistening black in the moonlight, with twisted faces etched into the fabric. Each face seemed to scream in silent agony, mouths open wide as if in eternal torment. The realization hit Jenna hard. Those were the faces of the lost, perhaps prey to the same horror enveloping them now. "Run," she hissed, throwing caution to the wind. She didn't wait for his response, trusting instinct over logic. Jenna surged forward, leading Jake through the thicket, desperately hoping to outpace whatever darkness pursued them. They darted deeper into the woods, branches scratching at their skin like jagged claws, as the darkness fought to ensnare them. "Mommy, I can't," Jake gasped, tears streaming down his face. "I know, baby. Just a little further. Please," she pleaded. The shadows felt alive, creeping at their heels, ready to snatch them back into the void. Suddenly, Jenna stumbled on a root, tumbling heavily to her knees. She caught Jake before he fell, wrapping him in her arms protectively. "Keep your eyes on me, Jake. Focus." But the moment she peered up, a chilling figure loomed in the darkness ahead, its face obscured by a veil of shadowy mist. Jenna's stomach dropped. Was it another? Or worse, had the first caught up? "Why do you struggle?" it called, voice a menacing hiss that snaked through the air. "You cannot escape the fate that awaits you. You're already part of it now," Jenna cried, scrabbling backward, pulling Jake along. But the figure lifted its arm, pointing at her, and she felt a rush of sickening heaviness descend upon her. Images flashed, screens of sorrow and despair interwoven with laughter turned to screams, her life unraveling like a thread caught in a storm. "Mommy, help!" Jake shrieked, his small frame shaking violently, eyes wide with terror. I'm here, Jenna yelled, fighting through the disorienting haze. She shoved herself to her feet, screaming through the suffocating grip of despair. In that moment, a terrible clarity washed over her. What did the figure mean by already part of it? Could it relate to her past? Dark memories twisted at the edge of her mind, shrouded in fear and regret. "Run, Jake. Now." She surged forward, hoping against hope. But as they bolted, the ground rippled beneath them again, like a pulse of dread thrumming into life. "Join us," echoed from multiple lips, shadows swirling wildly as Jenna and Jake sprinted through the twisting arms of the forest, uncertainty gnawing at their heels. Where could they find refuge? The darkness was relentless, and with each moment, that haunting voice wrapped around her, whispering doubts, weaving despair. There would be no safe place, no peace if they couldn't uncover the truth. What was lurking behind that veil of shadow? Time was running out. As they soared past dead trees, panic fueling their flight, a deeper question arose from the shadows. What secrets lay buried in her heart, waiting to be unearthed? And would those secrets be their undoing? Everything vanished behind them as they ran deeper into the trees, but Jenna felt the shadows lurking, biding their time. waiting for a moment of weakness. The trees around them twisted and turned, their gnarled limbs reaching out like skeletal fingers. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest, each beat a reminder that something evil breathed down her neck. We have to keep moving, Jake. We can't stop. Her voice cracked with desperation as she tugged him along, each footfall echoing like a drum of doom. But that relentless dragging sound was back, louder this time, reverberating through the silence of the night. The air felt thick with dread, and Jenna could almost taste the fear on her tongue. Was it the same figure? Or had the forest conjured up more horrors to torment them? "Mommy, I don't want to die," Jake whispered, his voice trembling. Those words sliced through her like a blade. She turned to him, her heart breaking. No, we're not going to die," she insisted, willing herself to believe it. "We just need to find help. Somewhere safe." But did safety even exist anymore? As they weaved through the underbrush, a flash of moonlight caught her eye. There, off to the right, a dilapidated cabin stood a lonely relic in a sea of darkness. It looked abandoned, but it was their only chance. "Look, Jake. A cabin. We can hide there." They stumbled toward it, the door hanging off its hinges, creaking in the wind like a call to the damned. Jenna hesitated. What awaited them inside? "Stay close to me," she warned, clutching Jake's hand tighter as they crossed the threshold. The air inside was stale and cold, tinged with a moldy scent that choked her throat. Old furniture lay scattered about, draped in thick layers of dust like forgotten memories. Shadows flickered in the corners, and each creak of the floorboards sounded like a scream. "Mommy?" Jake's voice wavered, pulling Jenna from her train of thought. She turned to him, panic swelling in her chest again. "I don't like it here." Before she could respond, the dragging sound escalated, echoing wildly off the cabin walls. Jenna's heart raced. "We need to find something to barricade the door," she said, scanning the room for any semblance of protection. "Look." Jake tightened his grip on her hand, pointing to a small trapdoor in the corner. It was ajar, darkness spilling out like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. Jenna's blood ran cold. "What is down there? Maybe it leads to a safe place?" she suggested, though doubt gnawed at her. "Or maybe it just leads to more trouble." Jake's trembling didn't fade. "I don't want to go down there, Mommy." She crouched down, trying to meet his frightened gaze. "I know, but we may not have a choice." The dragging sound grew louder, and the whispering chorus intensified, more faces emerging from the walls, twisting in agony. "If they find us," Jenna trailed off, the thought too horrifying to voice aloud. She had to do something, confront the darkness, or be consumed by it. "Stay behind me," she instructed solemnly, then ripped off the trapdoor. It creaked loudly, echoing through the cabin like a thunderclap. With a quick breath, Jenna stepped onto the rickety stairs, pulling Jake behind her. They descended, the air thickening as if the darkness itself was wrapping around them. But just as she thought she could breathe, a blinding light erupted from below, bursting through the shadows. Jenna froze, absorbing the luminescence, a strange, eerie glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jake whimpered, and she could barely hear him over the racing of her heart. Just a little further." She steeled herself, knowing they had reached the brink between salvation and doom. What would they find at the bottom? Were they stepping into freedom or an abyss? As they plunged deeper, the light flickered, and for a horrifying instant, she could see faces emerging in the glow, twisted, anguished, eyes wide with sorrow. They stared out at her, pleading and accusing all at once. A chilling whisper echoed around them. "You can't escape, you're already part of the darkness." Suddenly, the light dimmed. The next moment, everything went black. What awaited them in the depths? And what price would she pay to uncover the truth lurking beneath? Jenna steadied herself, the darkness pressing in like a vice, each breath thick with dread. "Jake, whatever happens, we stick together," she asserted, her voice shaking but resolute. The echoes of lost souls hung in the air around them, whispering secrets that chilled her bones. There was something consuming about the dim glow ahead, promising but foreboding, like a fiery portal tempting her closer. With determination fueling her, she pulled Jake tightly to her. "Just a little further," she encouraged, pushing down her own fear. They pressed onward, advancing into the unknown, flanked by flickering shadows that danced ominously on the cavern's walls. The faces of tortured souls faded in and out of view, their torment palpable as they seemed to reach out, desperate for release. But suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber, jolting the air. Jenna staggered back, her heart racing as the ground beneath them trembled. "Mommy!" Jake didn't wait for her to react. He clung to her waist, eyes wide and misty. "We have to go back." "No. I want to let go," she replied fiercely. Jenna's grip tightened. They had come too far to turn back. As they moved closer to the light, it surged, swirling like a living thing. In an instant, the chamber burst into blinding brightness, illuminating the faces of those ensnared by the wraith. Each soul bore deep sorrow and despair, frozen in a perpetual state of torment. Jenna's heart shattered at their plight, each face a reminder of stakes infinitely higher than herself. "Mommy!" Jake tugged at her. "What are they?" "They're trapped, Jake, just like us." Jenna felt the weight of their knowledge and heartache. It seeped into her, filling the hollow void left by fear. The pulsing light began to dim, and shadows surged closer, hissing like venomous serpents. Panic ignited within Jenna, and she spotted something, a book lying in the center of the chamber, pages fluttering as if beckoning. "Jake, stay close," she urged, darting to grab it before they were engulfed. As her fingers brushed against the brittle pages, whispers filled the air, rising to a crescendo. "You were meant to find this, read. Break the curse." Holding the book tightly, Jenna felt a rush of energy as the words blurred and twisted, but one phrase stood out, written in a tremulous script. "To save those you love, confront the darkness that binds you." "Mommy, it's getting darker," Jake called, desperation creeping into his voice. Shadows twisted and morphed around them, an undeniable force urging them to turn back. "No, not now," Jenna cried, feeling the gravity of her choice. She flipped to the page marked by a heavy red ribbon, soaking in the knowledge that might save them all. "Together, Jake. We need to face the wraith," she declared, pulling her son closer. He stared at her, confusion mixing with awe as the light pulsed behind her. She could sense the darkness shifting. "We have to remember our strength, our love. It's the true weapon against this evil." As she began to chant the words inscribed in the book, the air thick with anticipation, warmth sparked in her heart. The shadows screamed, resisting, but the light rose to meet their defiance, illuminating every corner. The lost souls lifted their heads, drawn by hope ignited in the room. "Mommy, I'm scared," Jake whimpered, squeezing her hand. But Jenna gripped him tighter. The bond of love surged between them, igniting a fire that propelled her words forward. "By love unbroken, by trust untold, I break the chains of dark time's hold," she recited, voice growing louder, each word resonating with certainty. The shadows erupted, and the wraith howled as it appeared, a terrifying mass of darkness and despair. But Jenna's voice didn't waver. She felt Jake's hand steadying her own, its warmth radiating against impending doom. The wraith lashed out, weaving through the glow, eyes blazing with hatred. "You cannot defeat me. You will join them." "No, we will not be part of your darkness," Jenna shouted, lunging forward, the power of love and motherly instinct engulfing them both. Each word she spoke generated fissures of light, forcing the darkness back inch by inch. The shadows writhed, the wraith's screams echoing as it pulled back, struggling against the force unleashed. Jenna leaned into the warmth the light provided and called even louder, "In love, we find our strength. In truth, we break your hold." With a final terrifying scream, the wraith burst apart, photon-like rays spilling through the chamber, flooding it with brilliant clarity. The faces of lost souls shimmered with nuance, their chains shattering into a million pieces, released at last. Jenna felt the light wash over her and Jake, filling every corner of her being. And then silence, profound, soothing silence. As the dust settled, Jenna knelt beside the boy who had fought through hell with her. "Did we win?" Jake asked, small voice trembling but hopeful. "Yes, my love, we did." She pulled him into a fierce embrace, tears streaming down her face as relief wrapped around them. They were free, intact, more powerful together than apart. The world shifted around them. The chamber transformed into a serene landscape, the weight of darkness lifting like mist in the morning sun. In that moment, Jenna realized the power of truth, love, and family, woven together more tightly than ever. Hand in hand, Jenna and Jake took their first steps into a future without fear, filled with new light. Somewhere in the distance, echoes of laughter rang out, a sign of life renewed, love unbroken. Waiting for their next adventure, subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and help us spread these heart-stopping tales. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just unfolded. You need to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans know how crucial it is to support the channel through these actions.